Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from the Salad Bar. This is one I've been wanting to check out for a while, actually. I just thought, right, let's just do it. Why simple power systems work so well? I'm intrigued because I do feel like as soon as shows get a little bit too complex with the power system, it starts to be a little bit like what, and then like JJK, I've had to reread multiple things over and over to kind of get what's going on sometimes, and then I try and watch these power scaling videos, people explain stuff, and I'm just like, I've completely misunderstood that. So yeah, let's get into why. Because like people be like, Nen's amazing, but then there's also a little bit of explanation to it. Now, when you talk about like Bleach and One Piece and Dragon Ball, they're like really really popular, and it's just really simple and understanding. It's just like they just got a little bit stronger, and it's basic. But let's see what the Salad Bar has to say. It's probably a little bit more in depth than what I've gone into, but
Creating a power system can make or break a series. If a series relies on supernatural powers, those powers will only be as good as the fundamental system behind them. Is
yeah, because JoJo's made a shift in it as well. There was Hamon, which was interesting, and then it went to stands, and it was like, oh, what's this?
there a specific way to make a power system with guaranteed quality? Not necessarily. There's plenty of things you could do to make it enjoyable. More nuanced power systems can work perfectly fine from time to time. For the sake of this video, we'll refer to a binary of power systems. The quote-unquote complex power systems, which have several moving
So
parts and
Hunter
guidelines,
Nen, yeah.
and the quote-unquote simple power systems, which are a lot more straightforward.
Okay.
We're overgeneralizing since this is more of a spectrum. You could have varying degrees of complexity, and the examples I'm showing here aren't necessarily heavily complex. Hunter x Hunter is an example of a quote-unquote complex power system that
Yeah.
everyone points to.
Fair enough.
My first video on this channel was about why I love Nen so much,
Cool.
as well as how it's a great power system. Some people may disagree with me on this, but Jujutsu Kaisen is another example of a series with a more complex power system that feels engaging.
How could you argue that it's not? I feel like JJK is a very complex power system.
Sure, there's a lot to keep track of, but
Look at that already. Look. It's like, ah!
I feel it's explained well enough, and even with all the moving parts, it's shockingly
I
consistent.
think I have such a simple brain that as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, fuck. I need to take all this in and then read it like twice.
Someone who doesn't remember every little detail can keep up with the story and understand what's going on. But at the same time, people that want to dig into it further have more to explore. The
Yeah,
hardcore
there's that
analytical
as
fans
well.
have things to look at. Those are two examples of these complex power systems done well, at least in my eyes. Of course, when introducing more elements, it's easier to screw things up, and of course, it's easier to make things more confusing for the reader.
True.
It's a balancing act. You want to make sure it feels intricate without feeling needlessly convoluted.
God.
So, what about doing something simpler? Doesn't that just dumb everything down? No, not at all.
necessarily.
Simple power systems can work just as effectively, if not more effectively sometimes. There are definitely circumstances where less is more. Today I want to cover some of my favorite examples of simpler power systems. This isn't a slight against more complex power systems that exist, nor is it meant to imply that these quote-unquote simple power systems have little thought behind them. The exact opposite, actually. I want to analyze the different elements that make these simpler power systems work, and why the genius behind them sometimes gets overlooked.
Cool.
Just like my video about the strongest archetype, I'll show a few examples of power systems I like,
Pokemon
and looking at
Suki.
what aspects of them make them work so well.
Finest computer.
These aren't the only examples, I just don't want to be redundant and cover the same aspects over and over. And I also don't want it to turn into a Watch Mojo top 10 video where I just list off every power system I like. So if one's missing, that's probably why. Or it's just one that I'm not familiar with.
I do
We'll
like
focus on the
Salad Bar's
aspects that make the
discussion
systems click
approach,
so
like
well,
it's
rather than
analytical
the
as
system
well.
or the series itself. No need to worry about major spoilers either. We'll be covering the fundamentals of each system listed here, and we won't be covering anything in depth that could spoil you.
Cool.
Let's begin with quirks from My Hero Academia.
Alright.
Quirks are definitely one of my favorite contemporary examples. It's pretty straightforward. Everyone is born with the power that they gain, usually something their relatives have, if any. There's also the aspect that very few people are born without a quirk, like Deku. People can have mixed quirks too, but outside of very special circumstances, everyone has one quirk engraved into their genetics. You're basically stuck as is without any crazy circumstances besides a few
And
obvious
then something
characters.
comes along and
You can
breaks
train
the
your quirk
status
to go
quo.
further, and down the line you might even learn that your quirk works differently than you realized. It's a pretty simple, straightforward power system, but it opens up a lot of possibilities. For one, there's basically a limitless variety of quirks. The power system isn't restrictive in any way, and that makes for a lot of unique possibilities with reasonings behind why there's so many different powers. Plus, the fact that it's a genetic trait opens up a lot more nuanced storytelling aspects. Built upon this relatively simple system, there's an obvious overarching narrative about how quirks have affected society, both in the past and now. There's people trying to manipulate quirks in their own way, all for one's entire process, and overhauls dealing with anti-quirk bullets, for example.
I thought that was like, whoa, that really shakes the story up, and it's like it doesn't affect the power system whatsoever. It's just like manipulating it, and it's like, whoa, okay, that's really cool.
It serves as a commentary on societal inequalities, expressed through things like Deku being born quirkless, or heteromorphs facing their own stigmas for their quirks, and even down to quirk marriages being used by the upper class of people. Story-wise, the series has done so much with this simple premise. Also, quirks tie into each character's personality. This is
That's
pretty
also
standard
true,
with pretty
yeah.
much any superpowered person in fiction, but here we have a sort of in-universe reason for that. A character's personality often meshes well with their quirk, not just because it's good from a character design standpoint, but also because we have actual reasons in the story for why it's like this. It's a great example of how simplicity can offer massive room for narrative growth, because there's nothing holding Horikoshi back from exploring new ideas. By the way, drop a like if you're liking this video, it really does help the channel and shows me you want to see more videos like this one. Next is Ki from Dragon Ball.
Yes,
I'd
let's
be heavily
go.
mistaken to talk about simpler power systems and not talk about Ki. Pretty much every aspect of the series influenced another somehow, but especially its power system is influential, and it's definitely not complex or hard to understand.
No, not
For
at all.
one, Ki isn't exclusive to Dragon Ball, or fiction for that matter. It's based on the real-life concept of Chi, a principle that exists in East Asian martial arts, and it represents one's life force and energy, which is pretty much exactly how it's treated in Dragon Ball. And it makes a lot of sense too because the series started out as a martial arts story. It takes a real-life concept and makes it more supernatural. Toriyama has
Yeah.
also said it consists of 3 different things. Genki, which is vitality or vigor, Yuki, which is courage, and Shoki, which is right-mindedness.
Okay.
3 pretty fundamental and straightforward aspects of one's character
Educational as well,
that
this
can affect their
video,
power
boom.
in Dragon Ball. And while this aspect of Ki isn't stated in series much, it's shown rather than told. These aspects of characters are constantly emphasized, especially early on in the manga.
One
Ki
of
is
the
also
best
incre-
types of storytelling as well is show don't tell. So yeah, if you can get that across very easily with this, yeah, it works. It works.
incredibly versatile, both in how it can be manipulated or even obtained. You could be naturally strong at birth, as a mutant like Broly or Frieza, or even just depending on what species you are, that can make you stronger from birth. You could also get power from rage, like Gohan, or you could hone your body and mind and train for it, ascending to a new level of power like most Earthlings did. As crazy as this power system has gotten, its origins are pretty simplistic and based on real-life things, which blend well with the theme of the series early on. Ki isn't the only source of power in Dragon Ball, but it's definitely the most prominent. Like, there's magic, for example, which is still relatively prominent and it's more vague. But even though that's usually shown on a smaller scale, the simplicity of it works really well,
Yeah, still
just
works.
as it does for Ki.
Yeah.
Speaking of series with multiple power systems,
One Piece.
let's go to One Piece, Devil Fruits and Haki. One Piece of course has these 2 separate primary power systems, both of which fulfill their own unique and useful purposes. Of course, there are other aspects of One Piece's power such as technology and certain species exclusive things, but we're only focused on these 2 powers. Devil Fruits are pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
You could eat a fruit, and
basically
it
a
grants the user
quirk.
power, making them vulnerable to bodies of water as well. And these fruits have the ability to awaken as well. It's easy to understand, it ties into the lore, and most importantly, it's versatile. It's a creative way to give characters powers, without requiring them to be born with such powers, and also keeping characters unique. Some similar fruits exist, but we also have an inverse reason for why every Devil Fruit user has a fundamentally unique power. And of course, there's the whole aspect of artificial fruits too. There are multiple ways in which characters in this universe try and take the power system and make it work for themselves, attempting to alter the fundamentals behind it. There's a scarcity to the power, and despite all the different characters Oda has created, he's been able to make a ludicrous amount of unique Devil Fruit powers while sticking to the guidelines of how it works, the different types of fruits, and the fact that 2 people can't have the same exact fruit. And this of course opens up other unique plot lines too. That's one of the aspects I love about it. Very simple restrictions can make for very complex storylines. On top of that, Haki is just as straightforward and robust. It allows characters to develop in other ways, and isn't just limited to Devil Fruit users. It works in tandem with fruits, or against it in some cases when you're attacking another Devil Fruit user. And there's a wide array of usages for it. The best part is, the 2 systems don't feel overwhelming together, and they blend together seamlessly,
They
even with
do,
the
to
fact
be
that Haki
fair.
wasn't formally revealed until very later on in the story. Of course, I'm sure you all know by now how good Oda is at planning and foreshadowing.
Yes,
And when you look back into the
genius.
story before Haki was actually showcased formally, it was clearly set up to be eventually introduced later on, which helps it blend well with the Devil Fruits and the Versus lore. Simpler power systems open up opportunities for
Shanks,
multiple
what a
power systems at the
legend.
same time. Another great example is Alchemy
Oh,
from
full
Full Metal
Alchemist.
Alchemist. This one is very versatile but straightforward with
The
its limits and
rule of equivalent
capabilities.
exchange.
Important rules are established so we know exactly what alchemy is and isn't capable of. It's a simple yet fundamental aspect of the world. And with how broad the power is, there's so many possibilities in how it can be used. This includes things like elemental alchemy, or how Ed uses it with automail, for example. Simplicity opens the door for variety. It also allows characters to fight uniquely without simply just giving them superhuman boost in power. They have to be knowledgeable about what they're using alchemy on, and have to use it creatively to fight other alchemists. The main reason I bring up the system is the fact that it has an overarching rule that basically acts as the crux for the entire power system. But not just that, the entire series as a whole. Equivalent exchange is a simple to understand rule which also ties it to real world physics in a way. This fundamental restriction is sensible, straightforward, and important throughout the entire series. And with a restriction like this, it opens up so many opportunities for how the author could use it. Something so straightforward could be easily built upon, not just in the sense of narrative plot points to move the story forward, but also from a thematic standpoint. Alchemy is also another example of a power system taken from a real-world idea, making it even easier to implement in the story. But despite that simplicity, it still does feel robust, as well as being used creatively. Another creative power system is Undead Unluck's Negation.
Yeah, this is sick.
In my eyes, it's one of the most creative power systems in New Gen, but it's also very straightforward. In the beginning, it left a lot of room for growth, which is a really desirable aspect of simple power systems. With less guidelines to abide by, this lets the power system have the potential to develop as much as the characters do throughout the story. Without getting into spoilers, over the course of the story, you do learn more about the mechanics behind negation and new ways to apply negation.
I'm going to get into Undead Unluck proper because I remember getting the manga and thinking, I feel like I'd enjoy this animated. Watched the first 2 episodes, really liked it, but I wasn't watching it like, legit, and it bothers me, so I just kind of stopped watching it. Now I've got a Disney Plus account, and I found Undead Unluck's on there. I was like, whoa, add that to my watch list. I added that, and then I added Summertime Rendering, the recent Code Geass, which apparently isn't that great, but I want to check it out anyway. There was Undead Unluck, Summertime Rendering, Code Geass series. I've thrown Bleach in there so that when the 3rd core starts, I can start watching it proper on there. And there was another one, but I can't remember.
Plus, the lore reasons for it existing, all without contradicting or retconning previously established ideas. Even if a power system isn't outwardly explained up front, authors can use this to their advantage, with part of the story focused on discovering how the mechanics of the system works. We learn about negation just as the characters do in the story, making for a very natural explanation for it. And once more, people who are paying really close attention to the story can appreciate the other ways it was built up beforehand. In short, part of the fun and thrill of Undead Unluck is discovering how this power system works. And even up to the most recent chapters, the knowledge characters have behind the system is still growing.
That's kind of cool. I like that. Because I got as far as in the manga. Where did I stop? I think it was a girl that could manipulate blood or something. She had like the big hat thing. Oh, I can't remember.
It's almost like the power system is a character itself, living and growing with every chapter that passes, just based on how much development it's had alone. And even with all that, the stuff we're learning doesn't make it feel overcomplicated. Simplicity leaves the potential for this. We could witness the power system grow just like a character does. I also have another new gen example that just recently started. Sorcery from Kagurabachi. If you're not on the series yet, get on it, it's really good.
I need
It also
to.
has a great example of a simpler power system. It's very straightforward and doesn't bog you down with too much information that you'll always have to keep in mind. Right now we still don't know too much about it, but it's just referred to as sorcery. And it's exactly what it sounds like. There are sorcerers, each with different abilities, utilizing spiritual energy to fuel it. Sorcery is a very straightforward type of power that appears in many series, and for how new...
I'm going to check this actually. I don't know if this is actually in print in England yet, like in volumes. I don't know how many chapters are out. I'm going to check.
this series is,
I'll check
I think
as
it's
soon as
very
it
promising
finishes.
so far, and it's an example of a
Kagurabachi
system that we
is
could witness being built up in real time. It's continuously being expanded to be more versatile, and right from the beginning it was prominent, tying into how the characters fight, act, and what they're fighting for, notably the Enchanted Blades. So far we've already seen a bunch of types of it, each with its own unique uses and unique weapons as well. Elemental magic, teleportation, dimensional storage, there's no needless restrictions on it, opening up so much potential for the variety of ways characters can fight. In the long run, I'm sure that's really going to help this power system grow and flourish even further. Versatility is incredibly important, especially based on how you plan to expand the power system as the series goes on. It's already been explained very simply, and it could tie directly into a character's development. For example, one of the newer prominent characters right now, Hakuri, he's showing exactly how characters could develop with their sorcery. One of the most fundamental aspects of controlling spirit energy is your mentality. It's very straightforward, and it's clear how that plays into a character's development, with him as a really good example. In the current arc, his growth as a sorcerer is directly tied to his growth as a person. This isn't unique to this series, but having such a simple guiding principle is great. It gives a perfect opportunity to show a character's mental growth through their power, effectively killing two birds with one stone, simply and efficiently explaining how they grew physically and mentally. It'll be really interesting to see how the system grows going forward. Once more, this video isn't to imply complex power systems are bad, not at all. I just wanted to display the fact that simpler systems can work just as well.
No, I do like that, yeah, because a lot of people will argue, well, I like this because it's dead complex and it's really like, it's not, there's more thought to it. But then like I said, all these shows are really cool, really fun, really enjoyable, and the system's very easy to understand.
Focusing on the individual aspects that I've outlined here can make for a really well-crafted power system with tons of possibilities. Less can be more in many cases, as long as the author is mindful about how these simpler elements are utilized and how they can grow further in the future. In many cases, a simpler power system can really enhance the story and characters, while still being enjoyable to see in action and easy to follow. With a ton of room for growth in multiple ways, it opens up greater potential for story beats, greater variety for how the powers can be used, more ways for the system to tie into character growth, and makes it more likely that the powers and their growth just feel more natural in the verse. Let me know what you think below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.
That was a cool video. That was cool. I like that. I appreciate that. It's a good look into it. Like, you know, because again, complex one's cool. I love Hunter x Hunter. I love Jujutsu Kaisen. I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They're a little bit more complex. You got to think about it a little bit more, but they're still good. You know. So, Thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, I want to be able to watch patron-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series. Link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask to help support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.